Let me join here. I'm sorry, I'm just adding something here. Mute myself.
Was Jackie going to be here, Veronica?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be here about 2:20, and then I got to go to our site for the fire inspection.
Okay. I haven't received any emails from her. I do have one new one. I'll check that. It's just YouTube. So, I am the secretary, so if you have to leave, I can take over.
Yeah, we'll be okay.
It's a little weird though. There she is. And we have a quorum for whenever you're ready to start.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. You said Jackie's here?
It's slowly joining. Yeah.
Oh, I see her. Okay. It takes forever on my side. My screen like bounces everybody around.
Yeah, no, it
Okay, so
was
I can
her
talk.
connection. It wasn't connected on my end either. So
All right.
there she is.
So we'll go and call the meeting to order. I'm going to be here until about 2:20, and then Jackie's going to take over. I have to go meet a fire marshal for an inspection at our new apartment complex. So.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take roll call. I'm admitting Sarah Martin now. So when I call your name, please let me know that you're here. So be prepared to unmute. Luz Martinez. Roseanne Ibarra. Lisa Judd.
Here.
Thank you. Jacqueline Williams.
Here.
Sarah Martin.
Here.
Keith Driver.
Here.
Paul Davis.
Here.
Lenya Leva Cho. Karen Lovato.
Here.
Blythe Post.
Here.
Amanda Archer.
Here.
Judy Albert.
Here.
Sage Wolf.
Here.
Dan McIntyre.
Here.
Noble Wadelick. Rachel McDavid.
Here.
Sandra Stolfi.
Here.
Anyone else I missed? We have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go on to the next topic here. Was there any public comment? Veronica?
I received no advanced request to be present for public from the public, nor did I receive any public requests.
Okay.
Comments.
We're going to go to the approval of minutes for April 19th, 2021. Is there any, wait a minute, is this, okay, never mind. We're not doing the full, today's not a full membership meeting, is it?
No, but usually we just, the board does them all because they're at everything.
Okay.
Do you want to wait to bring the full
Yeah, we
membership?
probably should wait to the full membership until the full membership.
Okay.
So we're going to approve the May 17th board meetings. Is there any corrections or questions on them? Okay, hearing none, we need a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Keith.
I second that.
Thank you, Sandra. You do a roll call, Veronica?
Yes. So when I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain to approve the May 17th, 2021 COC board minutes. Lisa Judd. I didn't hear you, Lisa. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Jackie.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Keith. He made the motion, so I'm assuming he approves it, but I still have to ask. Keith? Okay, I'm putting it as abstain. I can't hear him. Paul?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Blythe?
Abstain.
Amanda? You're on mute. Oh,
Yes. Sorry.
no problem. Judy?
Yes.
Sage?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Rachel?
Abstain.
Sandra?
Yes.
And I'm going to call Keith.
Yeah, sorry, I had to run to the door real quick. Yes.
It's fine. We'll just abstain and come back to you. All right. I've got everybody. Motion passed.
Okay. We'll move on to reports and presentations. Karen, do you have anything for the county?
I do not.
Okay. Veronica, do you have an update from Megan? Because I know.
I do. I have 3 topics. So I'm just gonna read what she wrote. Then maybe we can open it up for discussion after the 3 points. So on Project Home Key, otherwise known as the Live Oak Apartments, 37 households moved into the project in April. Overall, the project is going well. Staff is working with residents to identify their personal goals and support them in moving forward towards self-sufficiency. 4 or 5 of the households at Live Oak will soon be moving out to permanent housing at Ore Creek Commons. Remodel of the upstairs to add kitchenettes and flooring, construction of a smoking gazebo, and installation of solar panels will take place likely in the early fall. Megan will schedule another meeting of housing case managers and partner organizations later this summer before we begin the tenant selection process for the newly remodeled units. Project Home Key 2.0. Letters went out to local jurisdictions from the county CEO asking that they begin considering whether or not they would like to participate in a motel conversion, motel conversion program through Home Key 2.0. So the governor has released or is planning to release, if the budget is approved, a second round of Project Home Key funding. And so the county is using a jurisdictional approach by contacting all the jurisdictions and saying, hey, do you want this in your jurisdiction, and how to go from there. And then lastly, presentation to Ukiah City Council. Megan was invited to give a short presentation to the Ukiah City Council about her team's work with both Project Home Key and homeless outreach work in partnership with Ukiah Police Department. The presentation will be on July 14th. If the COC would like a presentation on either of the projects, Megan is happy to provide it. And that's what I have from Megan.
I, for one, would love to have a presentation regarding the homeless outreach team from the county. I mean, from Megan and her group.
Any other questions for Veronica / Megan? I think that outreach to the city on that report, Judy, is in the July meeting. So I think we could roll it into our July meeting as well.
Okay,
At least that's what I think it's tentatively scheduled for somewhere in July.
that'd be
July
great.
14th is when she's doing that one. And then we have a COC full membership meeting the following week, I believe.
Yeah, it's the following week.
And so we can add that to the agenda.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda for that weekend or that week, not weekend. Okay. Is there any update for the city of Ukiah, Shannon?
I don't see Noble here. Nothing really major. We are looking forward to Megan's presentation in July. We also received a letter from the county asking if we would be interested in participating in future Project Home Key projects should the opportunity arise. The city council had a brief discussion, and ultimately we're sending a letter to the county that will indicate that we're not wanting to rule out the possibility of an additional home key project in Ukiah. We are willing to explore that possibility with the county. We do have some reservations given the fact that the project is, not even fully leased up yet, not a year old, so we don't have a lot of experience. And so there's still a lot of unknowns. We want to make sure it's financially sustainable and all kinds of other things. But anyway, we will be reaching out to the county indicating that we are, we're willing to have that conversation. Particularly pleased with the success of the current project so far. Also, we have been getting what seems like an increasing number of complaints from residents about parked vehicles on their streets, specifically, people camping in their cars on the streets. And I'll be honest with y'all, the problem is not the cars themselves. The problem is when the owners of those cars sprawl their contents and their garbage all around their vehicles. And if it were not for that, then we probably wouldn't get any complaints. We do, I think you all know, we have a no camping ordinance in the city. The parking situation is a 72-hour violation, and most of the transients know that, and they know that they can move their car across the street or down the block or whatever every 72 hours and avoid getting a ticket. But the problems really arise with the garbage and the loitering around the vehicles. And so I don't know if there's any way for the COC to help address that. I know there are conversations happening regarding a safe camping area, but just wanted to relay that feedback that we're getting from our community.
Yeah, Leslie Street's pretty bad for that, up and down the block.
Leslie Street, Hamilton behind the hospital and Home Depot. There's one Mulberry over there, kind of, off of Washington, Talmadge area. So there's a few spots that have been really challenging, and we're doing what we're able to do, which is move people along. But if there's anything we can do to encourage them to be tidier and less sprawly, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I know the whole neighborhood and the wagon sellers behind our new apartment complex is problematic too, Veronica.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if, because you spoke about, Shannon, you spoke about Project Home Key, the letter and the interest, and then right after that talked about the cars. Are they related or are they two separate topics?
Totally separate topics.
Okay, I just wanted to find out if Home Key was having any kind of, like, if we were causing a problem like that. So
I'm not aware of any complaints regarding Project Home Key yet.
okay, thank you.
I didn't mean to say yet. I'm not anticipating any. I'm not aware of any at this time. Sorry.
Thank you.
Shannon, can I just get absolute clarification about this? So somebody could park their car and sleep in their car for 72 hours without it being a violation?
They're not supposed to sleep in their car. That would be camping. They can park a vehicle in the same place for 72 hours. What I'm telling you guys is that we probably would not get complaints from people if they were just quietly sleeping in their car and not throwing garbage and playing loud music and putting camp chairs and barbecues out next to their cars.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, but there's still, so anything, if a person's sleeping in their car, that is considered camping.
It
Anywhere-
is.
Anywhere.
In general, our law enforcement has been very lenient regarding that unless there are complaints or other issues happening there. I'm not encouraging it. I'm just saying that's what's happening.
And-
Very,
and
very
is that-
fine line here.
So is that a countywide ordinance?
No, that's within the city limits.
So probably Willits might have to pass their own, or Fort Bragg might have to pass their own too.
I don't actually know what the other jurisdictions have in terms of camping or no camping ordinances. We could check with them.
Okay, it's kind of just good to know.
Well, it's something that the group that's talking about a safe camping area should be aware of. That currently there's nowhere in the city of Ukiah that would be acceptable for that. The only legal camping in the city limits is at the fairgrounds, which is technically under state jurisdiction. So anything in the city would require an amendment to an ordinance and some other, bureaucratic stuff.
Mhm.
Hey, Paul, do you know anything about camping ordinances on the coast? You're muted. There you go.
What, can you be more specific? I mean, what?
So, like in the city of Ukiah, they have a no camping ordinance that that places. Well, Shannon, maybe you can.
Yeah, we do not allow camping in the city limits. So, not in vehicles, with the exception of, because of the semi-recent case in the 9th District Court, between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. on public property, people are allowed to sleep. They cannot store their camping paraphernalia on public property or anything like that. But we do not allow sleeping per se, but we do have a no camping ordinance with that exception.
Yeah, we do, and I don't know about the exception. I haven't heard about that, but yeah, no, there's no camping in Fort Bragg.
I believe Willits has something similar as well, but I'm not sure.
I think that's probable.
Mhm.
Shannon, we haven't seen that on Fort Street as much as we've seen abandoned vehicles.
Oh,
That-
really?
Yeah, and I mean, they are eventually towed away, but by the time they get towed away, they're filled with garbage and trash and, so.
The RVs present a real problem because they're a liability for the towing companies. The towing companies don't even want to take them. We had one with registration tags that had been expired for 10 years.
Ah.
We were struggling, obviously plenty of warnings, but we were struggling to even get a tow company to work with us because the RVs are in such bad shape and they're so difficult to dispose of and destroy. It ends up costing the money.
The other question I have is that we've had 2 fires behind the recovery center, in the creek behind the recovery center, and then the private property on the other side.
Yeah.
It's scary for us, but just because of fire season, but are the people that are caught doing that aren't cited, are they? It seemed like the fire department came, we put out the fire, and 3 days later, everybody's just right back over there.
I believe they are cited, but what do you do when somebody has no money or,
Right.
they're
Right.
just cited and released. So it's kind of like drug possession. They're in and out.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like this is a really valuable conversation to have about where can we have people camping where they won't get cited. You know what I mean? Like, these are folks in our community who no longer have a house over their head.
Yeah, there's a committee, or is it the Shelter and Housing Committee that's
Yes.
discussing that? Okay.
Yeah. But I must admit that it's a little bit like chasing your tail constantly because, yeah, I've been sitting on that Shelter and Solutions Committee, and we circle around for about it feels like endlessly for months, trying to look at how other cities do it and whatever. But you have to find a designated spot. You have to come up with some money, because there has to be some oversight. And so far, it just seems like instead there's been just more of an intention of blocking that. But, you know, whether we could actually, you know, have something that would look like a safe parking place for people who have vehicles or vans, it seems like it would be helpful. Then it wouldn't be, you know, be turned over to law enforcement. And
Yeah, it would take a weight off in many directions. And we know seasonally that we have an influx coming too. And so like, you know, not that, you know, it's just something to be mindful of I'm willing to come and be part of that process too, Judy, if you want to reach out to me at Manzanita-services.org.
I
I'm
don't
just-
recall if a safe camping place is specifically addressed in the strategic plan. I don't think it is. But that's certainly something that could be added, or maybe it fits somewhere else. But one of the issues has been funding for that. And again, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but that's something that the group should look for in the future. Is I don't think any of the funding sources had been a good fit for safe camping. We did get an estimate. The city of Ukiah got an estimate from a local service provider during COVID for $500,000 for about 9 months worth of safe camping management. So it's an expensive program to run, and somebody needs to operate it. But again, that's a whole dedicated conversation.
yeah, I agree.
It's an eligible activity under, I believe, under HAP, possibly under ESGCV. So that was an allowable expense under street outreach under the recent RFQ.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good to know.
Which I can't talk about.
Okay. Anyway, that's all I have for the city of Ukiah.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks, Shannon.
Tabitha or Sarah from City of Fort Bragg?
I don't see any other jurisdictions represented.
Okay, we'll move on to standing committees then, since there's nobody else here. We have not had a strategic planning meeting. There will be one here shortly. I would suspect before the next board meeting in July. Angelica or Sage? I don't see Angelica.
For Shelter and Solutions Committee?
So we're going to test this. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. All right. I can do just a brief update, I guess, on Shelter and Solutions. We've met and are deep in this conversation about a safe parking, safe camping type of project. The committee has done some research and looking into what other communities have done. We had requested at the last COC meeting that when the strategic planning committee meets, that if the Shelter and Solutions committee can join, and we have an item on the agenda could we have an item on the strategic planning committee agenda to go over safe parking and or camping, as how does it fit with the strategic plan, and what is the, like we could talk about this and research it, but what is the COC's, like where does it fit in the strategy that we're employing right now?
You have the next report too, Sage. You just want to do coordinated entry discharge?
And I'm amazed you can hear me, so I'll just go ahead and give it. I had given notes to Veronica, but so the Coordinated Entry Discharge Planning Committee, we're working with the ad hoc committee that's working on the emergency housing vouchers, just to come up with the coordinated entry prioritization and referral plan. So that's underway. The other thing that we're doing is coordinated entry is returning to the standard coordinated entry policy that was in place before the onset of COVID-19. So we'll be returning to, for now, using the VI SPDAT. And we're also going to be including some additional prioritization factors, one of which is the COVID-19 risk factors. So there'll be kind of a hybrid model of some like local priority around wanting to still continue to prioritize folks who are at risk on the street or in shelters if they can't keep themselves safe from COVID, but returning to that standard process for coordinated entry. So that'll be rolling out in the next month. And then the other thing is that We've also, during COVID, we had suspended the coordinated entry committees or the coordinated entry policy around exiting people from coordinated entry after 6 months of no engagement. And so that was great to be able to suspend that for a little while COVID was going on. And now we're re-implementing that. So we've removed that suspension of that policy. And so we're using our housing navigation meetings, which the housing navigation team meets twice a month. And we'll be using that meeting to any clients that are enrolled in coordinated entry who haven't had engagement in the last 6 months, or at least evidence of engagement on HMIS for coordinated entry will be reviewed in that meeting to either identify who's going to be exited from coordinated entry or who needs to be just have an update assessment done in HMIS to keep them current.
Yeah, thank you, Sage.
That's all I got.
Sage? Okay, we'll go on to the next report, which would be membership committee. Veronica?
I have two things. One, we've received application for from a new member. Her name is Camille Leggett, and she's an individual with experience of homelessness. So excited to have someone else join the COC for especially in that role. And then the next meeting in July is the annual membership drive and orientation. And I'm hoping I can get some volunteers to help me with this. Our membership committee isn't active. The people who have participated in the past don't have the time or capacity to do it any longer. So it's pretty much just me at this point. And if you want me to pull this off on my own, it's going to be very basic and meet the check boxes. And I think we can do better than that. So is anybody willing to help me with this between now and the next meeting?
I'll help, Veronica.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Anybody else? Okay, I'll reach out to you, Amanda, and please, anybody, remember, you have to participate on at least one committee, all COC members, not just board members. So if you're not actively on a committee and you don't have a lot of time, the membership committee might be the right one for you because we only meet quarterly. We only meet 4 times a year. So it's less demand, and so we need help.
Veronica, are you saying that everyone must be a member in a committee? Because I am currently not right now. I was, but I'm not now.
Every membership, so like you're covered with Grace's participation. So it's per agency. And sometimes you can have more than one person per agency doing that. So
Veronica, I don't think that
isn't that because they're not individual members. It's
well, I would think that if people are coming to the general membership meetings and wanting to speak, and even if they're representative, like otherwise, I mean, I think we've done it that if you're a member of the COC, whether it's under an agency or as a private citizen, the expectation is that you're going to join the work of the committees because that's where the work is happening. Otherwise, it's going to all be on Grace or all be on me or all be on Sarah when we have other people in our agency who work in homeless services who should be also supported and doing
yes,
the work.
And
of
that's
the
at your agency's discretion, whether you want to add more or not. But it's like minimum requirement is per agency, you have to participate in at least one. And who does that is up to you.
Brian?
Just mentioning, I think it's a little confusing because our COC charter in regards to committees and membership doesn't really explain things in this way at all, or really in any way. It's sort of vague on it. So it's hard to kind of hold members or non-members to rules or non-rules when our charter doesn't really spell it out implicitly in one way or the other.
Thank you, Brian. Did you have anything else, Veronica?
No, that's it.
Brian, did you have a report on HMIS or performance?
Sure, I can give an update from our last committee meeting. It was pretty brief, not getting a lot of participation on that committee currently. We just had one non-HHA staff member attend the last one. So we reviewed the current data completeness report card, which is included in your packets. We send this out monthly to the COC board. Now, if anyone has any questions about those graphs or scores, you're welcome to ask. We've reviewed them pretty well in the past, and it's just for your information. It's not something that needs to be gone over line by line every meeting. Does anyone have any questions in regards to those reports? If not, the one thing we're reviewing in the HMIS Performance Measurement Committee is part of the HUD capacity building grant for HMIS. We have $32,000 set aside to create 2 data bridges to automate data between HMIS and up to 2 other systems. We've sent out some surveys kind of gathering what other systems partner agencies are using and if it would be beneficial to have any sort of data bridge between those systems. We got 14 responses overall from
Brian?
COC members. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but I actually have this on the agenda later on for under HMIS capacity building grant. The board can skip ahead if we want, or we can come back to it later.
Sure. I was just covering it because it was reviewed as part of the HMIS committee meeting.
I understand, but it's under the grant as well on the agenda, so it doesn't matter, but I'd like direction from the board.
We'll cover it under the section on the agenda.
Okay.
That was the bulk of our HMIS meeting, was reviewing possible data bridge and survey response data.
All right, thank you, Brian. Is there any other questions for Brian? No. All right, so this transition's smooth. I'm gonna give this to Jackie because I have to step out actually a little bit earlier than expected because my contractor just called. So I will see everybody later.
I think we should all applaud, Dan, that anytime you get something built and the fire marshal's coming to sign off, we should all go yay. Now,
Let's say yay after he signs off. So
oh, that's true. A premature yay. Okay, so any comments on the committee reports before we move ahead? It looks like we can move ahead to the ad hoc committee reports. Veronica?
So we have 2 ad hoc committees in existence right now, and we have a recommended action item under both. The first one is the 2020 point in time count ad hoc committee. We've finished the 2020 reports. We've also finished the 2021 HIC and sheltered point in time count reports. I've kind of given up on making a 2020 PIT executive summary. It's been a year and a half. I think we should just go ahead and just move on. So my recommendation, for staff recommendation, is that we dissolve the 2020 point in time count committee because both have been submitted. We'll be bringing the 2021 HIC and PIT reports to you at the next meeting. We wanted to do it at the full membership meeting so we could have as much engagement as possible.
So Veronica, we need a motion to in the ad hoc committee, or do we just?
We need an action.
We need an
Well,
action.
it wasn't ad hoc.
It was ad hoc. So I think Dan and I can just say we're done.
Okay. I think you're right.
I think we're done.
Okay. We're done with it then. Yay.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I'm writing minutes too.
I know.
So the second ad hoc that we have is the emergency housing vouchers, or EHV. The HUD website link is still on your agenda. Currently, the Community Development Commission and the ad hoc group are working together to complete the MOU template. We've established quite a bit of prioritization and eligibility criteria. All of that is going to be listed in the MOU. During the last EHV committee meeting, there's a big focus on our timeline. We have a very short time period in order to turn this around. And so we wanted to come to the committee and find out, well, come to this board to discuss the process to approve the MOU once completed. Jackie or Lisa, could one of you chime in at this point? You know better than I, and I've been talking.
I'll start, Lisa. It's pretty standard stuff. And what we were talking about was once we get to the place where we feel it's complete, we didn't want to have to wait for the next meeting because, you know, as Veronica explained, there's some kind of stringent timeframes here. Lisa, do you want to add to that?
Basically, that covers it, except for the timeline is July 1st is kind of when they would ideally like us to do it. July 31st is our deadline. So that's a really tight deadline to put an entire program out and roll it out. So the EHV ad hoc committee is meeting weekly, and I feel like we're just really starting to get that progress going on that.
So, Veronica, on this one, we would need, I would think, a motion to authorize the co-chairs to sign the MOU if we aren't going to do that in a meeting. Is that your understanding?
That's what the committee had discussed, yes.
Right.
And that's what I was requested to bring to the board, that the COC board entrust the ad hoc and the COC co-chairs to come up with this agreement and put it in place.
And I just would like to add that we have also sought out, obviously with working with the coordinated entry discharge planning, and it will go through the strategic planning committee as well. So it's not just like this independent ad hoc committee. We are bringing it to those committees as well.
Yeah, in fact, that was one of the chuckles. It's like by the time you add all those three committees together, we were trying to figure out who we'd left out. So this, I would say this is low risk, but
yeah.
So we would.
So I would make a motion.
Was that you, Sage?
Yeah, I would make a motion to authorize the COC co-chairs to sign the EHV MOU as it has been reviewed by the ad hoc committee and in collaboration with the strategic planning and coordinated entry discharge planning committee. So thoroughly vetted, it will be great. Let's sign it.
Would someone like to second Sage's motion?
I second it.
Thanks, Blythe. I think that was Blythe.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are ready for our roll call vote. So when I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain to authorize the COC co-chairs to sign the EHV MOU after getting vetted by the Coordinated Entry Discharge Planning Committee and the Strategic Planning Committee. So yes, no, or abstain. Lisa Judd.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Keith.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
Judy.
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Skipping Dan. Rachel,
Yes.
and Sandra.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
So would anyone like to make any comments about our ad hoc committee reports before we move ahead? Okay. Veronica, do you want to talk to us about ESG?
Yeah. So the direct services request for qualifications closed last week. I received 9 responses. I'm putting together a review panel. So far, I have Dan McIntyre, Sandra Stolfi, and oh my goodness, Jesse Van Voris from HHSA. Those are the 3 staff members that I've gotten together to do the initial screening, which is for the minimum requirements. And then there's a second review panel that's put together to actually review the content, like the materials and the project and things like that. So there's 2 levels of review, and we should be starting that. I'm hoping to have it scheduled for Wednesday or Thursday of this week. Any questions on ESG? Okay.
I have a question. I do have a question. I'm just wondering, so like we have funds in different buckets and like there's allowable expenses and the way that the NOFA or not NOFA, the RFQ was set up, it was kind of like, if you had money, what would you like to do with it?
Right.
Like it was kind of like, here's all the kinds of projects you could do. Tell us how you're qualified or what you would do if you were going to do these projects. So like, I can imagine that the people that are reviewing in this, whoever is looking at all of those project proposals or however they are submitted, could have kind of a hard job in figuring out how to allocate the funds that exist to the kind of projects that are there. And I'm wondering how the strategic planning committee and the COC and the county or whoever the funders are, how have you guys decided where to allocate funds?
So
I realize this may not be an answer right now, but it's just a question that I think is going to come up. So it'd be good for us as a COC to have an answer.
Sure, Sage. I think of it as the different agencies are demonstrating the things they're qualified to do or have a history of providing, kind of in preparation for what you discovered. I don't think it's in lieu of. Does that make sense? I mean, there will still be a request for proposals, won't there, Veronica?
It's just the request for qualifications that we're running with. This is it.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, they're not going to do requests for proposals. That's why I think I'm a little confused here, because I'm not sure how our COC or how the county is deciding what projects to implement or what projects to support that have already been implemented. That's not super clear.
Right.
So it's really murky because all of this funding just got thrown at us. And so the way I have envisioned this moving forward is that I'm going to need to develop that in coordination with that second review panel, that using the strategic plan and identifying, where the different activities align with the strategic plan. And also, do we have funding to do that activity? And if yes, why not fund it? And so it's more of a, do we need this in the community? And if so, do we have the funding? And if so, any issues? And then we move forward. And
I think it's a good question. And I think it deserves more attention. And I suggest we put it on the agenda for next time, because I think Sage is right. I think it's,
Here's my
it's a,
problem though.
uh-huh.
Here's the issue that I face with that. There's a conflict of interest because all 9 of those agencies, or 9 or 10, 9 agencies that applied are members of the COC. And
Right.
so I would ask that if that does happen, that those agencies that have responded recuse themselves from that process.
Yeah, I'm not asking for a process. I'm saying a deeper understanding of how we're going to meet our COC objectives now that we've implemented this new request for qualification process. I mean, I felt like Sage was saying, how's it gonna work? How will what programs will be determined to be sustained? What programs will be added? Who's making those decisions? How are we making those decisions? So I think just more foundation information around decision criteria is a little different than performance criteria by agency. Is
Right.
that, Sage, did I misread your question?
No, that's exactly it, Jackie. And
okay.
And
so
yeah.
So, you know, I understand what both Sage and Jackie are saying. I guess my only thing is that, you know, and I realize that it was such a time squeeze and get this in, but it almost seems like the criterias and the preferences should have been set before we put in the request for qualifications, because it wasn't exact. It was actually a fairly, it wasn't that short of a turnaround, but it was kind of an unexpected kind of thing. And it was, I kind of had a different understanding in terms of, if you're going to get into a contract with the county and the monies are going to be coming in, this is how you kind of get your foot in the door, just to go ahead and have that as a stamp of approval. I don't know.
So in the RFQ, it states that between, I think it was 100 and it was somewhere between 6 to 9 months, that there was going to be a review process that's to be determined on how to determine what project should be sustained. We have a lot of money through ESGCV, but that's going to end June 30th-ish. And then from there, we still have HAP and some other fundings as well, mostly HAP. Cash, that was the other one. And so we would want to review which ones do we want to sustain as a community. So is that what you guys are thinking about, or is it more of the initial allocation?
All of the above, I think.
I was going to say, I think it is. I realize it's new, so we don't have, hooks in our head to hang this on, because we're trying to make it work. It kind of reminds me in the olden days with United Way, where there was an allocation committee. After the funds were raised and projects were reviewed, there was an allocation committee. But that committee had very specific kind of like marching orders. And we're still at that figuring this all out stage. So I would imagine we're going to learn a lot through this first 6 to 9 months.
Anything else on ESG? HEAP is going to be closed out June 30th. So we're working diligently on those final invoices. There's still a little bit of outstanding invoices from a couple of agencies, but I know they're coming. Any questions on HEAP?
Veronica, okay, never mind. I was just wondering if you guys received ours.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we got the last one, but I'd have to check. I haven't looked.
Okay.
But Zoe didn't tell me I had to look for it, so
Okay.
I'm assuming yes.
That's a good sign.
Okay. HMIS capacity building grant is next. And actually, I'm going to turn this over to Brian.
I believe the COC NOFA is next.
Oh, I skipped one. Yes, thank you. So the Continuum of Care Program 2021 NOFA will be upcoming. They've sent out the grant inventory worksheets to verify what our current funding is. I checked with Lisa on that. She said everything was right. And since HHSA and CDC are the only two agencies listed, I went ahead and moved forward with it. And so it's not out yet, but I will make an announcement as soon as it is. And that's it. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brian for the HMIS capacity building grant.
Sure. The main focus of our last HMIS committee meeting was reviewing responses. So we have funding to possibly link other systems to HMIS. The first step of that was to get an overview of what systems are currently being used and if it would be beneficial to link those systems together. We sent out a survey. We had 14 responses in all, and it's looking like the most commonly used systems are XM, which several partners use for billing mental health services for clients experiencing homelessness. Yardi, which our housing authorities use for managing properties and rent and the clients and their programs. Vertical Change, which is used by 3 or 4 agencies, Adventist Health, Whole Person Care, where they're doing a lot of the monitoring of their street outreach programs in Vertical Change. And the last project is VA Homes, which is a simple export from the VA to track clients in HUD-VASH. And so we didn't have much action in the committee last week on that. So it's really trying to get overall engagement and bringing this back to the COC board. If it's something as a community we want to explore, it's not a passive project. It requires people who are, somewhat subject matter experts in those programs like XM and Vertical Change to be involved. We want to link those systems together. It's not just a simple, throw some money at it and someone builds a bridge. It's a pretty intensive process. We were asked for this sort of systems communication years ago. So we're just getting to this with the grant funding. So it's reaching out to the board for any input or direction or people that want to be involved in this process to determine if we want to create data bridges, and if so, which data bridges. And Kirsty and Veronica were both at that meeting too. You're welcome to chime in on anything I've missed.
I think you covered it all, Brian. That was great. I would have said the exact same thing. So thank you.
One of the things that I found really important in this discussion was understanding what the purpose is. So we know that we have case managers or agencies in the COC that are using more than one system. They're using HMIS in addition to Vertical Change, in addition to XM, and et cetera, et cetera. In order for us to make a data bridge to where you only have to use one system, we would have to build all of those HMIS questions into that other system. And then it takes monitoring to make sure that that information is coming from that other system and populating correctly into the HMIS. And so the reality of the situation is the data bridge isn't the level of data exchange that would allow for an agency to only use one system. It's just too much information, and it's a higher level software interaction than what a data bridge is meant to be. A data bridge is maybe once a week or once a month. The systems talk, exchange, verifying information on a couple of items or whatever we feel is important. And they have to be data elements that both systems share. So social security number would be very helpful. It's one of the highest unknowns in our system. And HUD dings us on our COC application if we have less than 5%. If we have more than 5% is unknown and we exceed that. So that's one easy way that, with that social security number to be able to improve data quality. One of those systems that I don't think that Brian mentioned quickly is the VA Homes system that Sandra and her team utilize for, or maybe not their team, but VA uses it for the HUD VASH program. We have HUD VASH represented in our HMIS already because we have a really, really cool housing authority who likes to put things in HMIS even when they don't have to. So we, unlike the rest of the nation, we have VASH already in there. But it would be an easy low-hanging fruit is what our TA called it, to connect the VA homes and our HMIS to be able to talk and get that information about those veterans. So just wanted to kind of share that it's not the level that I think our COC had envisioned when we first applied for this. It's just not feasible with this budget.
Sure, and to speak to that, so you can create a data bridge, and what you're describing is a comparable HMIS database. And I think Project Sanctuary could tell you that creating a comparable HMIS database, they've been working on it for a few months now, since you can't use DV in HMIS. We can create a data bridge between a system that is a comparable database, but if you want something like XM or vertical change to be that comparable database that captures all HMIS data, agencies are going to have to do a lot of additional work with those software projects and put more money into expanding that initial system to be a comparable database. The data bridge establishes the connection, but the data bridge doesn't necessarily do the work to turn any other vendor system into a comparable database. We can just link the data fields that already exist in the system with this data bridge. The capacity is there for linking a comparable database. It just requires a lot more work and attention from agencies to take that first system and bring it up to speed to capture all HMIS data. Not only capture it, but update it every time HUD updates their system to have different data points or different standards. So it's also a long-term project in that you have to constantly update to meet HUD's data standards if you're using a comparable database.
So Brian, do you believe there's the return on this investment, given what we've learned?
I don't have really enough of an understanding of what our partner agencies are using XM for. So when partners first came to us about this idea, data bridges was a really hot concept in the world of homeless services in like 2018-19. So it's really getting a better understanding with our partners what they're capturing in these additional systems. We kind of know what vertical change looks like because the county uses it and we can get a sneak peek into it through the ACT team. I don't know what Yardi collects. So it kind of takes the other agencies to come to the table and say, here's the things we're doing double data entry on. Here's where we would want to save some time. And as Veronica pointed out, we don't have the time or funding probably right now to turn someone else's entire system into a comparable database. But if someone wants to link, XM or Yardi to HMIS, we need kind of input and feedback to know what that looks like. And what you're saving in that double data reduction is worth maintaining this system over time, how often you're going to update the data, things like that. And there are so VA Homes is practically a comparable database. So the home system they use at the VA does collect like 99% of what HUD needs. There's like a few little sticky points that don't quite line up, but it's effectively already a comparable database, unlike the other systems mentioned. There would be some advantage to linking to vertical change because there's an entire street outreach component that's not captured in HMIS right now. but it's also challenging. The vertical change captures maybe 1/3 of the HMIS data you need. So you maybe create a data bridge, but then someone has to come over to the HMIS side and update all the records to collect what's missing in that data exchange. And I can get into the weeds on a lot of this, but big picture, if agencies are interested in having these data bridges, we're just going to need buy-in and support for what those look like and if they're worthwhile. Otherwise, it might just be using this money. This is all tech talk. On top of this, there's establishing data information sharing agreements, the contracts, all the legal stuff that goes into place, which I've been told is actually more intensive and more frustrating than the tech end of it at times. I'm leaning strongly towards VA homes personally, because there's already a data sharing agreement in place and it's already there and done. It's just a matter of setting up the export timeline. But these chances are there, and we want to bring it back to the board for direction, since we're just not getting a lot of feedback or buy-in at the HMIS committee level right now, and we don't want to miss any advantages or lose out on something that would be beneficial.
It might be beneficial to do the VA homes as a pilot and learn what the advantage really could be. I don't know that those of us on this call could even begin to make that judgment right now. Judy, did you have something?
No, not really, because we haven't really, we're just at the beginning stages of creating the documents, parallel, et cetera, and are getting our data people trained.
Right.
And to be clear, we can't establish a database or a data sharing bridge with Project Sanctuary. So they have to create, due to the funding, a comparable database that just spits out the aggregate data in a format. But that's still going to contribute significantly to the big picture data in our community. You just don't get client level data, but we'll have a much broader understanding of how many people Project Sanctuary serves, and that will be part of our reports going forward to HUD, which will be great.
This one's a conundrum for me. We could do a lot, spend a lot of time and do a lot of work and wonder what kind of return we're really going to benefit from.
Yeah, and my other concern is, we were really expanding rapidly when we applied for this grant. We've come a long way, but it could be, even if these are great ideas, maybe we just don't have the personnel or capacity to take them on right now. There's so much funding coming in for homeless services and a data bridge. Even if it's a great idea, if our partner agencies don't really have the time to kind of take on the work to really establish and evaluate this sort of thing, it might just be bad timing. But I don't want to make that decision for our agencies or the board at all.
Yeah, I think I need Dan's input too, but I almost feel like this was a great idea we had in 2019. And maybe not now. So we do need to dig a little deeper.
So if there's anyone who's working with Exum, Yardi, Vertical Change that wants to weigh in, feel free to email us, or if you've got employees, work with those projects and you want them to be part of this conversation, feel free to send them to me or the HMIS committee or home team at mendocinocounty.org. I mean, the more feedback we get, the more informed decision we can make on how to move forward with this funding.
Before I forget, another HMIS related item is the home team is hosting a end user training on June 30th for both new users and users who want a refresher. You can register on Eventbrite. So reach out to any one of us to get that link to register. You can, like Brian said, hometeam@mendocinocounty.org is a new email we're all sharing. So it'll get to the right person no matter what. And I'm also including the link to the Eventbrite in the minutes today. And I can also share it if anybody wants me to read it right now.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Brian. Let's keep talking about this.
Okay.
And to be clear, the funding, so it ends in about a year. So we you would have a year to discuss, implement both the tech side and the paperwork side.
Okay. I'll review this with Dan, and at our agenda building meeting, Veronica, let's decide what the conversation should be going forward.
Thank you.
So it looks like there's no action needed from the board on cash or HAP. So I guess now would be a good time to ask on the funding that we just went through, are there any comments that the board members would like to make before we move ahead? All right. So projects, I'm going to just spend a couple minutes on the 100-day challenge. And then we have updates from housing providers currently accepting applications. Today's day 29 of the 100-day challenge. I feel like the team is sensing some pressure, realizing we're at day 29 as the looming deadline continues. But I also think that there's been some good discussion across the team on equity, on the current processes we use, on landlord engagement. So I would think as the work continues and solutions are developed or proposals are developed, you will see those products that come out of the 100-day challenge shared with the COC membership. I think it's interesting that because of our experience with COVID, that we identified that frail or elderly, ill or frail people are a cohort that we probably need to pay more attention to. And I don't know that we would have without Project Room Key. So it's interesting every time we have a new experience in our community, we learn more about the needs that are visible and the needs that are somewhat hidden. I feel like we learned this with homeless families a couple of years ago that Blythe Health helped us better understand because of the data that existed in the school district. So again, more work to be done, more probably prioritization as we move forward, but it's a good, engaged and active, informed group of folks, and they're making traction. I also have to say that the consultant agency, the Rapid Results folks, one of the good reasons that we should volunteer for this is we have access to all sorts of what worked and what didn't work in other communities like ours. And sometimes just, seeing how other agencies approach some of the similar challenges that we have kind of stimulates your creativity. Veronica and I were on a call with our fellow barrier busters or sponsors, and we were listening to a gentleman from Monterey. And, all of us that work to serve the underserved and the homeless often experience a challenge with helping them access and provide the documentation that they need to be able to apply for some of the things that could make their life better. Monterey literally made it an incentive game. And it was just, rather than this overwhelming to-do list to make you feel bad about yourself of all the things you have to pull together and get, they literally created incentives with gift cards, and they kind of created a stamp situation where as you provide everything you provided, they stamped your card. And at the end of when it was all completed, there was an incentive given to the folks they were working with. And I just thought that's inspiring, because many of the folks we serve are overwhelmed. And so anything that we can do to help them, separate the big ugly task into steps and then acknowledge the progress they're making in a positive way was one of my favorite examples or takeaways from our last meeting. So we'll continue on. Folks are working hard weekly. I think we have to remember that many of the folks that are working on the 100-day challenge are also people that would normally be working in some of the COC work groups. And so we've got people kind of double booked here for the next several weeks. And that may be why we have some things lagging. So unless somebody has questions for me or Veronica or any of my comrades that are participating in the 100-day challenge, I'll turn it over to any of you that you're accepting applications for housing assistance. Veronica, did you have an expectation on who would have information?
Well, I know that there's been a lot of new housing complexes popping up.
Right.
And so I just wanted to give space on the agenda for anybody here that's got a housing program that you're operating or that you know of that's looking for applicants or accepting applications, just so that we can continue to share resources.
Okay.
Does anybody know?
I'd like to give an update. Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd love to give an update about our rapid rehousing program that we have in the Ukiah Inland area where you serve clients through that rapid rehousing program. It's hosted out of Building Bridges, but we serve clients from Covelo to Laytonville to Willett, the whole Ukiah Valley area, Hopland, and sometimes in Anderson Valley. And we partner with Mendocino Coast Hospitality Center, and Hospitality Center provides rapid rehousing assistance to clients who are on the coastal area. We've been doing that for a number of years, and it's been a really great partnership, I think, to be able to share kind of the focus on the inland area and then the focus on the coastal area, because we can, Hospitality Center has such a great expertise in that area. But every so often I get feedback that the rapid rehousing program isn't super easy to access. And we sent out emails over the years to our housing navigator team about how to access the resources that rapid rehousing has. So I just want to do an update of that, if that's okay, and how people access rapid rehousing. So inland, for our rapid rehousing program, we use the coordinated entry system to identify clients to poll for rapid rehousing. So what that means is that anybody who's enrolled in coordinated entry and eligible for coordinated entry resources, right now that has been COVID-19 risk factors and literally homeless are the criteria so they have to have COVID-19 risk factors and be literally homeless to qualify for rapid rehousing assistance. As in the next month, as our criteria for coordinated entry goes back to being the VI SPDAT, it will be people who are high scored on the VI SPDAT, literally homeless, prioritizing folks still who have COVID-19 risk factors, but also looking at those other factors that are on the VI SPDAT. And so when we have an opening in our rapid rehousing program, and when I say opening, I mean opening for like a client who needs ongoing rental assistance for 3 months to up to 2 years. We have a limited number of openings at any given time for providing ongoing rental assistance due to limit in funds. We currently, up until very recently, have only had a very small bucket of money. It's expanded a little bit with the CARES Act. There was an additional $50,000 that was allocated. So we're going to be identifying additional households to be able to pull in. There's a secondary path for people accessing rapid rehousing assistance, and that's really what I want to share with you guys today. If a person would otherwise be prioritized for permanent supportive housing or as EHV comes online, though EHV I think won't need rapid rehousing backup as much as PSH has, or if they would be prioritized for HCV, they're literally homeless and they have the COVID-19 risk factors, so they may not have been a household that we've pulled, but all they need is like a little thing. They just need a security deposit. They just need their utilities turned on. Maybe they just need to pay a couple months of back rent. maybe they just need to pay their first month's rent. Like they just have a small thing that's in the couple $1,000s range of one-time financial assistance to be able to get into housing. Like, and they have a place identified and they just need that one thing to get into it. You can refer them to me. So if you email Sage at wolf@redwoodcommunityservices.org, you can email me with the information and go, hey, I have this client we're working with. They just need a security deposit. They just need their utilities paid, and then they'd be able to get into this house. And we're pretty quick at being able to process that stuff. So rapid rehousing is really all about being flexible, being quick moving, and helping people get over those little obstacles that we just took care of that, we can get them into housing. So please keep us in mind when you've got stuff coming up with your clients that you're working with.
Thank you, Sage. Any other program announcements? Because, it's been a while since we had oh yeah, Shannon.
Well, I'm not, and other people might even have more current information on this, but there is the affordable senior housing project that's being built behind Rite Aid, and they are accepting applications at this point. Do people have that information? Would you like that information? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yes,
all right.
please.
So the phone number to call is, I'll just give you the toll-free one. It's 866-452-8250, or you can send an email to, and I can put this in the chat maybe. Oh no,
We don't have chat. It's a county hosted.
Okay. Receptionist at Buckingham PM, which is Buckingham Property Management.com. So you'll have to have people tell them who they are and how to contact them, and let them know that this is the Ukiah property, because they do manage other properties. We've never worked with this company before, so I really don't have any inside information about them. But once again, that number is 866-452-8250. And the email is receptionist@buckinghampm.com. And it's a 100% affordable senior housing. And that's unfortunately about as much as I know about it.
Do you remind me about how many units? Do you remember that?
It's somewhere around 35 units. It's 35. A pretty good sized project.
Pretty good size. Yeah.
So Shannon, do you know if they still have vacancies?
I don't know anything about it. They're still not fully constructed, and I haven't heard any additional information.
Okay. I referred a gentleman over there last week, and he called me again today saying he hadn't received a call back. So I think maybe I'll send him an email with his information to make sure that they know it's for the Ukiah property, and ask them to reach out to him again.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. I'll check in with our planning department and see if they might have any updated information. If I find that, I will share it with you, Veronica, and then maybe you could share it with the group.
Happily.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. So, now we have a few minutes for some announcements. I'll kick off. We've been back and forth at the Ukiah Recovery Center trying to decide, are we going to have a recovery event in the park this year or not? And we decided we are. So we're just pretending that the whole COVID thing's in the past and we're moving forward. So there will be more information about that. I'm also hoping that for those of us that operate communal living environments, that if anybody hears any additional information about what the ongoing expectation of COVID testing is, let's help each other stay informed as we're all trying to move forward. And then again, I'd love to hear other announcements from other agencies. Brian.
Just wanted to say Northern Circle Indian Housing Authority has accepted and is moving forward with the use of HMIS for their housing disability and advocacy program and possibly their emergency rental assistance program. So very excited to have a new housing authority in HMIS, as well as one that serves a community we've traditionally had very low data on.
That's exciting. More good news. I need more good news.
They don't even have to use ERAP for HMIS for ERAP, but they're opting in, and it's so exciting. Somebody doesn't have to, but they want to.
Well, somebody that understands the importance of good data.
Which has also prompted the GA unit, who does HDEP for the county, to finally get into HMIS. It's been on their long-term to-do list for a while. So Mary Ziegler and Lola have accepted that they're going to be moving into the HMIS world with us too, as long as Northern Circle's coming in with the exact same program.
Yay.
Just a reminder that for certain preferences, so for natural disaster, for veterans, and also for those fleeing domestic violence, as long as they have a referral from, they're in the transitional housing with the domestic violence agency, those three preferences are still open for the housing choice voucher.
Thank you, Lisa.
We wanted to announce really quick that we did receive a grant for low barrier mat a couple of months ago, and we are up and running for mat services at McCabe.
Can you tell me for the minutes what that stands for?
Medically assisted treatment.
Thank you.
Anything else? Our next meeting is in July, and as Veronica said, it's a full membership meeting on the 19th. So last call for more good news before we sign off. I have one. Next meeting, we need to decide if and when we're ever going to meet face to face again, when that might occur. Poor Paul, it means coming over the hill.
That's a nice trip for me.
Okay. Stay safe, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.